is $10. Available at all Burger King drive-thrus for a limited time.
It's hump day. Roll back.
Roll back. Every Wednesday and Thursday, all Rubus stations are rolling back the price on all fuel purchases by 20 cents. Every customer will save 20 cents on every gallon of fuel purchased on Wednesday and Thursday. Every customer. Only at Rubus.
Roll back. Roll back.
Live from Star 927 Studios in the center of Cayman's capital city, Georgetown. This is Straight Talk with Ruth Anna.
Good evening, everybody. You are tuned into Straight Talk, brought to you exclusively by Star 92.7 Premium Radio. I am your host, Ruth Anna Young. Always honored to be your host here on Straight Talk every Monday through Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here and nowhere else other than Star 92.7. It is 5:01 on the Star 92.7 clock, and it is the 29th of June. We're almost to the end of the month. Tomorrow is my mom's birthday. She is about to be 59. I'm already looking forward to God's Spirit's life to celebrate the big 6-0 with her next year. So I'm gonna wish an early happy birthday to my mom today, and then do another happy birthday tomorrow. And then I have my sister, who her birthday is coming up on Thursday. So I'm surrounded by Cancerians. It's a week full of birthday celebrations. And so we are planning the special COVID-19 birthdays. But today is Monday, which means it is Medical Monday, brought to you by our partners at Health City Cayman Islands. And I am joined in studio this afternoon, a conversation I look forward to. I get to have this conversation usually once or twice a year. I think this is Mr. Charles's second time or third time.
Second time
in studio. So I am joined this afternoon by Director of Business Development, Mr. Shamari Scott, also their Senior Education Coordinator, Mr. Charles Bush, and Healthcare Explorers SURF alumni, Mr. Nathan McCoy, who I'm quite excited to get caught up with this afternoon. And it is his first time in the studio, which means we'll have a Who Your Mama Is segment. But I'm going to save the Who Your Mama Is segment until after, maybe after our first break, when I have some time to really talk to Nathan and get into his introduction into the medical field, and the changes he's navigated and what he wanted to do in his career, along with what he's doing now. And of course, how his experience with the Health City programs influenced his decision, because while he is headed into the world of medicine now, that is not where it started for him. But you guys know the deal. Before we go any further into our conversation here on Straight Talk, we always start our time with the reading of today's Daily Bread. So today's Daily Bread is entitled Simply Ask, and the scripture comes from Isaiah 65, verse 24, and reads, "Before they call, I will answer." Her doctor said her detached retinas could be repaired, but after living without sight for 15 years, learning Braille and using a cane and a service dog, a Montana woman's life changed when her husband asked another eye doctor a simple question: could she be helped? The answer was yes, as the doctor discovered the woman had a common eye condition, cataracts, which the doctor removed from her right eye. When the eye patch came off the next day, her vision was 20/20. A second surgery for her left eye met with equal success. A simple question also changed the life of Naaman, a powerful military man with leprosy. But Naaman raged arrogantly at the prophet Elisha's instructions to wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan and your flesh will be restored. Naaman's servants, however, asked the military leader a simple question: if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? Persuaded, he washed, and his flesh was restored and became clean. In our lives, sometimes we struggle with a problem because we won't ask God. Will you help? Should I go? Will you lead? He doesn't require complicated questions from us to help. Before they call, I will answer, God promised his people. So today, simply ask him. Thanks be to God for that word today. Always here on Straight Talk, we remind you, we encourage you to spend time each and every day focused on his word, meditating on his grace and how awesome he is. 943-3700 is the line in the studio. You can also WhatsApp me at 324-1565, or you can email me at straighttalkci@gmail.com. If you're just tuning in, today is Medical Monday brought to you by our partners at Health City Cayman Islands. I have three lovely gentlemen in studio with me. One for the very first time, Mr. Nathan McCoy, which means you'll get a Who Your Mama Is segment, but we're going to save that till I've gotten to catch up a little bit with Shamari and Mr. Charles. How are you gentlemen doing? Well, I had a chance to catch up with Shamari since COVID and all this craziness the world has been going through. But Mr. Charles, how have you been? What have you been up to? And welcome back.
Thank you. It is wonderful to be back with you. And I do owe you a show appearance about family trees. So we'll have to organize that sometime. But I've been doing well.
Absolutely.
Like everyone else, just doing my best to stay safe.
Okay.
And navigate this new normal. I think we're into new now.
That's a good way to put it. You are very right. This is a new normal, and a normal with masks I wish I didn't have to wear.
Yeah.
But,
and Ruthanna, just to mention, I think that's the first time anybody has ever called me lovely. So thank you very much for that.
They say there's a first time for
There's a first time for everything. That is true. And it's
a
pleasure to be back here with you again, Ruthanna. And I know Charles really was itching to come back on, but he can do that on his own time. He doesn't need to do that on Medical Monday time. Call him back like on a Thursday or something.
Okay, no problem. Listen, Mr. Charles, when you are ready, we can do a Wednesday or a Thursday, and let me not get too into it, because I remember when you started like piecing together those puzzles of like last names and all of this, like that's super exciting for me. So we will have that. For those who don't know, Mr. Charles, in addition to his role at Health City, is also a family tree researcher extraordinaire, and can probably tell most of us to some degree where our connections lie, and help us trace our lineage, which I think is so fantastic.
As long as you're from West Bay. I specialize on West Bay family trees.
Okay, fair enough. I can't. Okay, so we might be able to help the rest of y'all, but for the plenty West Bayers, right, that would love to know really the connections of our family trees, because I'm a West Bayer. Then Mr. Charles gonna help us dig into it. I can't wait for that show. So Mr. Charles, we can't make it. It can't slip by us this time. Okay,
No.
Within the next 2 weeks, you and I gonna need to get together. But let's dive into the conversation. As I mentioned, Shamari, we generally get to touch base on these programs, usually once or twice a year, at least on Medical Monday, as Health City has a whole suite and range of education programs to introduce children and teenagers and young adults into the field of medicine. I know you've spoken on the show on a number of occasions about the fact that the goal is to get the children really as young as possible to start planting the seed of the possibility of careers in medicine, wide ranging as they may be, and that's something that we've also talked about. And another year has
Definitely
gone on, and I know that you guys touch hundreds and really thousands at this stage.
Yes.
Students annually through all of your programs. So what has the last 12 months been like for you guys in terms of students who pass through your program and been introduced to the medical field through the various Health City programs?
Definitely. We're very excited to be here today, Ruthanna. Now, the last time we came, we would have discussed that at that point in time, it would have been the 2018-19, school year. We would have had 2,414 interactions, which was more than the first 4 years combined.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we were doubling down, showing that our commitment was there. We went through the various products, and at the end of the day, the goal is to create medical pathways to give as many students within the Cayman Islands community an ability to at least taste what medicine, right? Taste what medicine is like, taste the healthcare sector, and hopefully would do one of two things: either inspire them to want to become a doctor, nurse, technician, or to understand from a very early age, or even if they're high school, that, you know what, this isn't for me, so that they wouldn't waste time doing something that actually isn't for them when they actually get into it and realize what it is. So the great thing about the 2019-20 year that is not yet completed or just completed is that we would have seen 4,303 had 4,303 student interactions, which, guess what? Even including last year now, which was more than the first 4 years, this year is more than the first 5 years.
Wow.
So we far exceeded last year by also having the most student interactions in any given year. And what we did is we were ahead of the curve with our online videos, our webinars, making sure that the kids can see such things as anatomy of the heart, know your bones and joints. Light, matter, and radiology was the first one from last year. Well, sorry, the newest one from last year that we actually did. And I remember outlining that you really know when Health City was going to be successful was when I first started traveling the Caribbean and the such. And the reason I would get into a room was because I knew a minister of tourism, who then would introduce me to a minister of health, and minister of health would be more or less, okay, I have to give you this 30 minutes because my colleague asked me to, but who are you and why are you here? And what do you really think you can do for us? And then after about a year, we started getting calls, or when we went into a room, they could tell us stories about Health City, patients that have gone through, oh, you're doing the artificial hearts, oh, you did the first ECMO, oh, you had the baby with the heart outside the chest that you put back inside, how can we work together? And I remember when we started this in earnest, 3 years ago, when the program came under the umbrella of where I was, and working with Charles and going into the schools and trying to sell our webinars and our video catalog, and teachers saying, if inspectors come by and they see people watching TV, we're not exactly sure what they're going to think, maybe next year. And we were having difficulty at times getting it into the schools. Now, guess what? Teachers and principals are calling us to ask us if we have any new products. And the great thing is that in our brainstorming and the such, Charles will be in contact with teachers and principals in order to understand what they want to push this coming semester, so we can develop products from a medical perspective that's still within the standards and the subject matter that they have. And now you're achieving both goals. They're fulfilling their curriculum, and now we are showing students exciting ways to apply science in a real life matter in the hospital, which then exposes them to Health City. And that product has been doing really well, and Charles will go into that as well. But one thing that we're very proud of is not only from a virtual perspective, were we really reaching the kids, but even when you look at field trips, for instance, and you go back to when we started, and we would get a lot of students coming through, 183, 238, and the such. This last year we had the most ever from a physical in the hospital field trip perspective, 337. So not only are we doing it virtually, even the in-person products, we were exceeding by far our numbers previously. From a day camp perspective, we were at like 19, 14, 12, 19, 19. And this past year we had 36. And it's just, we always try and figure out how to reach the different age groups with something exciting that they will actually start to digest the information, and exceeding numbers, but quality interactions to get persons like a Nathan that will have obviously that conversation a little bit later, to get persons like a Nathan taking that medical path, that even if Obviously, we would love them to come back to Health City, but even if they never come back to Health City, they're coming back into the medical field, which that is time well spent getting more Caymanians into the medical field as well. Before I hand it over to Charles, just also want to state that obviously during this time of physical distancing, right? The great thing is that we're looking at innovative ways to still offer our programs and to engage the children. So, for instance, previously when you would come on a field trip, now we know for the foreseeable future we're not going to be able to have children and or even young adults in our facility. We're developing virtual products where we'll have a tour guide carry people through our facility, and you'll have a Dr. Benoit, and a Dr. Benoit will introduce himself, talk about what he does, and then we'll even have it age appropriate. So like for the 6 and 7 and 8 year olds, Dr. Benoit will say, hey kids, do you know what the closest heart in the animal world is to a human heart? What is it, Ruthanna?
I was actually just thinking I want to know. So
Oh.
I would love to tell
So, and Ruthanna got that wrong.
me.
So it's actually a pig's heart, right?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah, that's right. You
right?
are.
So
Yes.
it's a pig's heart, and then being virtual, you'll be able to splice it and go to a farm. Here are the piggies, right? And that heart is closest to a human heart, etc. And then obviously now for your teenagers, the ones that would have been like Nathan when he first came through to see a surgery, you'll be able to then show a Dr. Benoit dissecting a pig's heart so that the kids will get to see, okay, this is what a Dr. Benoit does. And that's just an example of how we're going to use technology to still engage these children. And then even with our surfer, Charles would have discussed previously, where you would give a case and they would actually come up with a plan on how to deal with that case. Now, pull through the chest type of scenario, have a depiction showing it graphically in regards to what the diagnostics look like, not the actual pull through the chest, and then asking the questions about how you would deal with it, and then being able to have an interactive session on the back end after the young adults have put together their plan to speak to Dr. Benoit for him to say, okay, this is what you did right, this is what you did not necessarily the best, let's discuss it, and let's see how we would actually go about that treatment plan in real life. And we're still going to be able to engage them, obviously, with videos, with real life scenarios, and then back end, Zoom or Skype with a doctor to answer questions and still have that level of engagement from a digital virtual perspective. So we are thinking long and hard and going to develop the products that still are going to be able to allow us to continue to do what we are doing and to reach kids of various ages in order to give them medical pathways and to give them that taste of medicine that we would have mentioned previously.
Okay, and I just want to quickly, I know he told me what happened when he went to Health City, but Nathan, how old were you when you first got to visit Health City and participate in one of their education initiatives? Or
I,
what group were you in?
I was pretty sure I was about 16 years old, 16 or 17, around that age. Not a senior in high school, but a junior, I think. Yeah, so about 16.
Okay, and so I wasn't sure of the time frame, and we'll get to learn a whole lot more about Nathan because I have tons of questions for him. But thank you for sharing all of that, Shamari. So, Dr. Charles, Mr. Charles, we got a new title today, right?
Promoted.
If you ever come up here, Ruthanna, then that means that's who you're going to see in the OT. Okay.
Oh dear! I hope that Mr. Charles has been paying attention in all these education sessions.
Now taking appointments.
And for appointments other than family tree research. However, you are the senior education coordinator at Health City, and as Shamari mentioned, Health City tries to touch children of all ages from as young as possible straight into adulthood, into the early parts of their studies and even
Right.
into their careers, working to encourage and expose Caymanians to the healthcare profession and all of the options within the profession. And you head up, that service offering. Now it is wide and vast depending on the age range, despite COVID and all of this madness. A number of years running now. So if you could share for the benefit of the listening public, what's the variety of programs that you guys have? Because I know there's stuff for the little ones, primary school age up to, I know I've heard of, pre-med university students traveling
Yeah.
off to the parent organization in India as part of some of your education programs. If you could just share the span of programs that you guys have, as part
Sure.
of your education programs at Health City.
Sure. So the main education products that we offer are the online videos that Shamari already mentioned. We have our Shadow a Doctor program, where students get to spend in a pre-COVID world, they would have been able to spend 2 days on campus shadowing a doctor, a nurse, or a technician. We have field trips, which we offer to primary school and high school students. Um, should mention that the biggest consumer of field trips this past year was actually our primary school um, students. Um, and then we have the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship program, which happens every summer, and that is our university program. Um, and Shamari touched on it earlier. The application date for that this year is July 3rd, because we pushed the start date back to on July 20th. So
And
we're
that's
still
the summer undergraduate.
research fellowship,
Mhm.
and that is the program that especially, which Nathan can I'll tell you more about later because he did that program. That is a program for university students on a pre-med track, and we give them a case study to work on, and then they have to develop the entire plan of care for a patient. But we look at it from a door-to-door perspective, so we don't only want them to analyze and write about the medical perspective. And the medical perspective is actually only 15% of their final grade.
Oh, really?
Um, because we want them to also give a detailed breakdown of areas like billing and supply chain. Where do we get these heart valves that we need for heart surgeries? Where do we get the artificial joints, and how do we get them? How do they get here? Um, what is unique about our billing and finance model? What makes our billing and finance model the most transparent finance model on um, in the country? Um, how do patients know about Health City? So that would be marketing. So all of that, then the students would write about in a 15-page paper and present that to us. So we're still accepting applications for that, and those applications can be emailed to healthcare.explorers with an S at healthcity.ky, a cover letter and a resume. We do accept applications from high school graduates who have a confirmed place in university on a pre-med track, who will be studying medicine. And that's actually how Nathan got to be in the program. He was an early admission because he had just finished CIS and we knew he was headed to Baylor. So based on the strength of his application and his interview, then he was admitted as an early application. Um, and we also have, our annual STEM Day Camp, which happens this year. It'll be on August the 15th. And that will be a virtual day camp this year. Shamari had mentioned that last year was our biggest day camp in attendance with 36 children at our day camp.
And what
And
age? What's the age group for that?
so the age group for that is it's year 8 and 9. So you have to be 12 years old, I think, by the date of the camp, in order to apply,
Okay. Got it.
in order to be admitted to the camp. So there's about 12 to 14-year-olds are in that camp. Um,
Can I
yeah.
ask? And I know Shamar, you've spoken about this on previous occasions, but why has Health City decided it is necessary to introduce students so early to the field of medicine? Because as early as primary school, some may say, "Oh, well, they don't know what they want to do." Why has Health City deemed it necessary that early introduction is necessary and beneficial?
So I remember when I was in tourism, and there always was this uh, trivia that would say, which let me remember it correctly now. Which profession is it that persons within this profession, the majority of them, knew that they would have been that profession before the age of 11 or 10 at the youngest age, right? And at that point in time, it was always pilots, right? That something like 95% of pilots knew they were going to be a pilot before the age of 11. Not saying that everybody who wanted to be a pilot became, but of those that became, like 95% of them knew before the age of 11. And I think back to even my friend Devon McLaughlin, flying around with his airplane saying that he was going to be either a bodybuilder, a wrestler, or a pilot back then. And sure enough, he became a pilot, right? And threw his back out trying to be a bodybuilder. But anyway, then when I actually was listening to Dr. Shetty, he actually made a point of saying that something like 95% of doctors know they're going to be a doctor before the age of 12. And then when we actually looked and did the research, so there's always metrics and a science behind anything I will be a part of, right? So that's why Charles and I, when we sat, did brainstorming, did strategic planning, we looked at what our objectives would be, right? As well as what's the research to make sure that we could confirm that it was true. And sure enough, we did the research and it confirmed that persons make decisions from a young age. So if you're reaching them, luckily Nathan still decided to come and become and want to become a doctor. But if you're only reaching people for the first time at the age of 15, 16, 17, chances are they would have already made decisions about where their career paths are going to be. So it's important to not scare them, but to actually start to reach children at the ages of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so that you can at least let them know that there is a possibility and they can start to think about the potential of becoming something in medicine. And I'll remember even obviously having children when they used to have career days where you dress up as what you want to become. And I remember Matthias and going to his school and noticing that prior to Health City being here, the majority of kids were dressed as, policemen and firemen and other things, and even suit and tie. I'm going to be a professional, like my daddy or my mommy, right? And sure enough, after about 2 years of Health City being here and the communication and seeing, I then go to the same school and like 80% are scientists or doctors or nurses, stethoscopes and lab coats and everything. And you can actually see the sea change of children, same ages, now, I guess because they can see physicians and they know somebody saved their mother or saved their grandpa, and now they want to become doctors. And I think that's important to be able to get that energy and for them to know that they can be anything they want to be, and to get those messages from a young age to put them on that path if they want to be.
And to Shamari's point, I mean, when the primary school children come for the field trips, they will actually volunteer. I want to be a doctor. And they'll be very specific also. I want to be a heart surgeon, and I want to be a brain surgeon. They don't always know the name for the kind of surgeon that they want to be, or the kind of doctor, but they are, the doctor that operates on, spine. So those ideas are being formed very, very early. So as Shamari said, we did our research, and that supported that we needed to be in the schools earlier than we were for the first few years of healthcare explorers, and we are seeing that um, pay off when students transition from primary school to high school, and then begin. We meet them again in year 7, and we meet them again in year 8. They say, "Oh, well, I was here when I was in primary school, and I remember we did this in the lab, and that was exciting, and I want to be a doctor."
And I think that's incredibly correct. That the earlier you plant the seed, the more kids have the opportunity to think about it. But we are going out to our first break of our time together. It's now 5:30 on the Star 92.7 clock. When we return, we're going to continue on in this conversation, and I'll get to have a deep dive with Mr. Nathan about his experience.
Who your mama is?
Who your mama is. But we'll be right back after this break.
Zero. You can also find us on Facebook or email us at straighttalkci@gmail.
Do you like winning? How about winning free gas? Free gas from Rubus is as simple as follow, like, tag, and share. Say what? You heard it right. Follow, like, tag, and share. Winners selected daily on our social media platforms. Go to Rubus on Facebook and Instagram. Follow, like, tag 5 friends, and share the post. It's that simple. Daily winners drawn for $25 fuel vouchers. So that's like earning, hold on, like 1 minute of work, it's 60 minutes for an hour, $25 divided by carry the 1. No, forget it. It's definitely worth your time to follow, like, tag, and share with Rubus and win.
All I do is win, no matter what.
Rubus, fuel the difference.
Digital banking, online, RBC. RBC Banking Online. Pay your bills anytime.
RBC Digital Banking is so easy. Even Granny and Granddad can do it. Sign up for online banking or download the RBC Caribbean app.
With RBC, it's safe and easy. Send your money hassle-free. RBC.
Visit rbc.com/Caribbean/bank at home. RBC Royal Bank. Banking reimagined.
Join the University College of the Cayman Islands admission team for their webinar, a step-by-step guide on how to apply to UCCI this fall 2020 semester. It's happening Friday, June 26th at 12 noon. Get the answers you need to make your admission process easy. Visit ucci.edu.ky to register. That's ucci.edu.ky.
To all school staff and especially our teachers,
we want to say thank you.
Thank you for your innovation.
For the online lessons over Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Class Dojo.
Or on Everest and Edmodo, where I can easily access timetables and homework.
Thank you for your kindness.
For providing me with a laptop so I could still do my exam prep and revision classes.
Thank you for your commitment.
For coming up with fun ways to make schoolwork exciting.
Thank you for your thoughtfulness.
And your encouragement.
For staying in touch.
So finding time to check on me and my family just to make sure that we're all doing okay.
We want you to know that
we appreciate everything you do as educators.
Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
A message on behalf of all government school students.
Welcome back to Straight Talk with Ruth Anna on Star 927.
We are back, folks, and you are tuned into Straight Talk, brought to you exclusively by Star 92.7 Premium Radio. I am your host, Ruth Anna Young. Always honored to be your host here on Straight Talk. I'll be with you until 6 o'clock this evening. Today is Monday, which means it is Medical Monday, brought to you by our partners at Health City Cayman Islands. I am joined in studio this afternoon by Director of Business Development, Mrs. Shamari Scott, a Senior Education Coordinator, Mr. Charles Bush, and Healthcare Explorer SURF alumni, Mr. Nathan McCoy. We are in large talking about the Healthcare Explorers Education Program offered through Health City Cayman Islands, which caters to students from primary school through to the university level. Shamari started us off with talking about how many more lives they continue to touch and impact through these programs, as they come as the years go on, and continue to double and triple essentially their numbers and touching more lives than this past 12 months than they had in the first 4 years, and then Mr. Charles helped us with understanding the different programs offered at the different age groups. I go to 943-3700 is the line. In studio. You can also WhatsApp me at 324-1565, and you can also email me at straighttalkci@gmail.com. But I can go no further in this show without taking a pause for the cause and turning over to Mr. Nathan McCoy, who it is his first time in studio with me. And as Shamar, you deserve a whole prize for your introduction right before the break for who your mama is. And so Nathan, it is your first time in studio here with me on Straight Talk, which means everybody is dying to know who your mama is.
Who my mama is?
Yes.
So my mama, Joyce Christian, she works in the government. She's from straight out of Honduras, out of Banaca. Shout out to all the Mangrabiters out there.
You talk Spanish, Nathan?
Un poquito.
Nothing we would be able to hear on the air or what?
No. That's reserved for special use.
Okay, fair enough.
And my stepfather, he's celebrant Christian. He works in government too. He's out of Jamaica. Shout out all the Jamaicans out there listening.
All right. 876.
What else you want to know? I don't.
How old are you? What district are you? I mean, what district do you claim as your own? What have you? We want to know things like, do you like cats, skydiving? What have you been up to in the last couple of years? Come on.
I don't know if you'd consider Prospect a district, but I mean, I'm from Prospect. That's what I claim.
Okay. Fair enough.
19 years old. I go to Baylor University over in Waco, Texas. I lived here all my life.
No.
Pardon?
How many years have you been at university now?
2 years.
2 years.
Going into my third year now. So I'm gonna be a junior coming up in the fall when I head back.
After all of this, and you are at Baylor and studying pre-med, yes?
Yeah, I'm doing a public health degree, pre-med.
Med track. All right.
Yeah.
And so I want to allow you to tell your story as much as possible. Now, you didn't always want to study medicine, right? I got a bit of time to catch up with him before we came on air, and Nathan didn't always want to study medicine. What did you think you were going to study and be when you had started to kind of make that decision for yourself?
So I mean, I know like some of the people at CIS can attest to this, but so I was at John Gray before, and I applied for a scholarship to go to CIS. And in the interview, they asked me, "So what do you want to do with your life?" And I laid out this whole plan that I had made up in my head, where I was gonna go to CIS. You have to say that, and then you go to university and study aeronautical engineering, and then go and work for like Lockheed Martin or Boeing or someone like that, one of those big aeronautical companies. That's what I thought I was going to do with my life back then. And yeah,
and
no.
How old were you when you made that particular decision for yourself?
I think I was probably about 14. That's when I sort of came up with that plan, tentative plan in my head of like what my trajectory in life would sort of look like.
And then what changed? You were exposed to Health City. How did that come about?
Yeah, so my first exposure to Health City is one of my good friends. She started a nonprofit called Impact 345, where little kids from all over the Caribbean or all over the world actually come in to get free heart surgeries there at Health City. And we would go and we would bring little backpacks full of like toys or books and things like that for these kids because they're underprivileged kids. So we'd go up there, and what really piqued my mind was we'd go up there and we'd sort of see them and we'd play with them for a little bit. And I'd see these like big scars that like go down their chest, and it really intrigued me trying to figure out like how did they help? Like what did they do? Because you can kind of see them before. Like some weeks we'd go before and you see a kid, and then you'd see them afterward the surgery. and you see like that big change in like what they did, and that kind of got in my head, like how did they do that, like what did they do in there? And then that's sort of like my first exposure to like the medical fields, you know, that little inkling in the back of your head. And then at a careers fair, Dr. Benoit, who is a chief cardiology surgeon up there at Health City, he came to the careers fair, and he started talking about, you know, what he does, and, you know, all the cool things that he has done, and that kept on, you know, itching that little thing in the back of my head, saying, hey, go talk to him after. And then I went to talk to him, and I was like, yeah, you know, I was thinking about doing this, but, you know, what you're doing sounds kind of cool too. And then he was like, you know what, you need to come up and watch me do a surgery. So I said, oh, really? And so he gave me his email. He also gave me Mr. Richards' email up there at Health City as well. And we sort of coordinated that. And I think that December, I went up there and watched him do open heart surgery on a little girl who had come in for the free heart surgery as well. And I was in there for like 10 hours or so. And he went in there, and it was like clockwork for them. It was just going in there, and they knew exactly where every single little tissue was, every little single bone, especially like on those little small people that they bring in there too. It's crazy how they know how to get around like those like almost underdeveloped little bodies. And then to see the little girl afterward, after the surgery, and how much she had improved and how much more like vibrant she had looked, that really like really started itching my head back there. Like, yeah, this is really what you need to be doing, Nathan. And then I went up there again to watch another one, and that time he actually put the patient on the heart-lung machine, because he had to go inside the heart to fix I think it was a hole in the inside of the heart between the different sections of the heart. And he literally stopped the heart, and it was as he explained it to me, technically he was basically dead on the table, but he was on the heart-lung machine. So the machine was doing all the work, but his heart was like stopped. And then they went in, they did everything, you know, same way like how me and you would eat food. They were in there like, you know, just doing it like it was nothing to them. And then they started the guy's heart back up, and then after a couple of days, you got to see him walking around. He was finally able to, you know, stand up and to go on walks with his wife and stuff. That was the one moment that I can attribute to like saying, hey, yeah, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life.
This is a defining moment, and I just want to say, your story right now is intriguing. My sister and her two younger ones, who are currently in the car, and she sent me a little recap of what you were saying. But shout out to my sister and my 11-year-old niece Ariana and the little one Jaya, who are right now mesmerized with you talking about the guy who was technically dead on the table. And so you may be inspiring some other young people as they are being forced to listen to my show this afternoon. But you know, it's so interesting to hear you share that kind of, you know, the little drips, right, that happen to you, the first interaction. You thought that you had a certain plan for yourself, and then through one experience there was, you know, what I call the drip effect, right? Of you know, the small introductions over time, and then that defining moment that allowed you to say, hold on, wait, this is where I want to be. Now, can I ask you, is there anyone else like in your family or in your life that is in the medical field, or did all of your, like, was it necessary for all of your inspiration into heading, you know, into a career in medicine come from essentially outside of your immediate sphere of influence?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I know someone in my family is probably going to kill me after this, but to my knowledge, none of my family members are in the healthcare field. So yeah, most if not all of my sort of pushing towards healthcare was from an outside experience, mostly from like the experiences up at Health City, as I just like explained to you guys.
And I want to, you know, what is, I guess, has been so glaringly obvious for me over the last 3-4 months that since March, where the world has been going through this pandemic, it's shown a bright light on the careers that remain standing regardless, right?
Mhm.
And of course, the major one outside of food is healthcare. And what it has highlighted for me personally is how important it is for us to provide that drip, right, in Caymanian students, to say, listen, this may be a career that is for you. Because fortunately for you, you got an introduction at a timely age, right? It wasn't when you were in primary school. You had decided other things in your life, but it was, you got introduced to it in adequate time to be able to make a change, right?
Mhm.
So now you saw two surgeries up at Health City, and then you had that defining moment, in addition to previous exposure through Impact 345. And when did you when did you say, okay, yes, I need to do this as a career, but taking those steps, what was that like for you to go home and say, you know what, actually, I don't want to be an aeronautical engineer. I think I want to study medicine. What was that conversation like? If you
I
don't
mean, no, I can answer that. I don't think there was like one conversation per se that I just sat down with my friends like, hey, I don't want to do this, I want to do that. But it was kind of like their sort of intuition that kind of was like, yeah, this kid's not going to do this. Like he's definitely going towards medicine. Like when they heard me saying that I was supposed to go up to Helsinki the first time to watch Dr. Benoit perform a surgery, they were like, you sure about that? Like, there's a lot of blood. Like that's a long time. Like how are you gonna do that? And I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna go see what it's like. And then I guess like over time, as I continued talking about it, and as I continued to like say like, hey, I'm gonna apply to go to the surf program that they have up at Health City over the summers. Like those sort of things, just kind of like over time, they kind of realized, yeah, he's doing medicine. And then also when I said I'm doing like the pre-med track at university, that sort of sealed the deal there.
Right, and that was it, Mr. Charles. If you could, Nathan mentioned the SURF program, and I think you've mentioned it. You mentioned it previously, but for those who may just be tuning in and coming into the feed, if you could just recap, what program is Nathan referring to when he refers to the SURF program in the summer?
So, Nathan did our summer undergraduate research fellowship, SURF for short. He did that in 2018, I think.
Yep.
So that program is for university students who are on a pre-med track, and you get the opportunity to spend a month with us working on a case study. We give you a patient composite profile to work on, and you have to develop the plan of care for that patient. Everything from the medical side, and as well as all of the ancillary services that go into the Health City model. So it's you really come away with a macro understanding of healthcare, which I think is extremely valuable for someone going in to study medicine, to understand that there are all these supporting actors, you may say, if you think of it as a stage, there are all these supporting roles that go on or go into the surgeon, the doctor, the nurse being able to do their role. Earlier I mentioned the supply chain department, where Nathan would have written about how we get those supplies here, whether it's artificial joints, artificial valves, or plates and screws, and all these things you would have seen in the news recently. Of course, about the PPE that we were able to source from overseas because of our partnerships. So all of that goes into the healthcare model. It's it's about medicine, and it's about a lot more than that. So we want students to appreciate that bigger macro picture, so that when they continue on in their studies, they also understand that all of this fits into the healthcare model. Um, and so the application process for that is currently open. We pushed it back this year to SURF will begin on July 20th through August 7th, through August 14th, sorry. And the deadline is this Friday, July 3rd, and applications can be emailed to healthcare.explorers with an S at healthcity.ky. And we're looking for a cover letter and a resume. And I will mention that, even though it's a university program, every year we do consider accepting early admission student who is someone who has graduated high school and has a confirmed place in university on a pre-med track. And that is how Nathan got in at age 17. He was a early admission. It doesn't happen every year, but we we do make those considerations for those strong applications from high school graduates.
Okay, and Nathan, my mother Wilma, who is tuned in to the show this afternoon, says young Christian looks very much like his mama. His mom and I went to UCCI together. She is amazing. So,
Yep.
and now when I come off the air, I'm gonna have to ask my mama to explain to me who your mama is, so that I could make the connection. And so thank you for sharing that, Mr. Charles. So you did the SURF program. You had essentially a few years of exposure to the Health City programs and Health City. You've now made the decision, going off to university, pre-med track. What has the experience been like for you transitioning from your experiences here, at home with Health City, the things you were exposed to, and going into the pre-med program over the last 2 years?
Well, for one, just the transition from high school to university is very difficult because you have to go up there and you have to set your own times, and you have to make sure that you get all your schoolwork done and all of that. And also like understanding the U.S. healthcare system versus the Caymanian healthcare system, because they're two very different things. Even the Health City healthcare system is a lot different from the U.S. Healthcare system. So things like that were sort of different. But what really prepared me was one, the IB program that I did up there at CIS, but then also at the SURF program, the case study that you have to do and the amount of detail that you have to put into that sort of paper kind of helps you to understand what it's going to be like in university, the kind of detail and the kind of like conciseness that you have to put into a paper in order to really get that high mark on a paper and to do well on things like the pre-med track. And it really sort of strengthens your grit, because you have to have grit in order to make it through programs, make it through the undergraduate years, and also especially in the medical school years in the US, or even if you're going straight into medical school over in the UK, that sort of helps you to transition into that like hardcore medical field where you're learning about basically every single part of your body in a detailed way, so that you know how to care for your patients later on when you start practicing. And it was a very difficult one for me, but I love a challenge,
And I think that's medicine as a whole. What would you say to the student or parent of a student who is giving medicine consideration or something in that field, and may not have yet, had the opportunity to be exposed to one of the Health City programs, for one reason or another, or may have been on the fence about it? What would you say your advice be to them at this stage after having your many experiences along the way? for those that may
I-
have it in mind?
I would say personally, just to reach out to the healthcare explorers, and they have a ton of different programs that they do there. Like even if you don't want to commit to the full month and the like 15-page paper about patient care, you can go and you can reach out about a shadow a doctor program, or sign into one of the webinars that they have online and sort of see what medicine is like. And I did the shadow a doctor program with some ICU doctors up at Health City back in December, and in like overall, with all the doctors that I've worked with, they're all super understanding of where you're coming from and what you want to do, and they take the time and they make the effort and they put in that extra effort to make sure that you understand every single thing that's really happening. Like I had in December, I was talking to one of the ICU doctors about a patient who's on a ventilator, and why would they take him off the ventilator even though like they're probably not they're probably not ready for it, or they might, if you waited a little bit longer. And then they took the time out to explain to me their thought process of like, okay, you need to do this before you can do this, and then if they make it to this certain oxygen level or whatever, they make sure to explain every single thing out to you. So the doctors up at Health City, and I know all of the doctors at the private practices or even at the HSA will be that understanding and put in that kind of effort. But I just say to make sure just to reach out and to get that exposure, because you never know what you want to do until you get that exposure.
Correct, because you certainly thought you wanted to do something different. But as we have 4 minutes left till 6 o'clock, I want to turn the microphones and give both Shamari and Mr. Charles final opportunities for final thoughts and reminders. So, Mr. Charles, final thoughts and reminders from you this afternoon, sir.
Well, Samari early on mentioned that the mission of Healthcare Explorers is to inspire young people to consider medicine. One of the reasons that we want to do that is because we want to maintain the high ratio of doctors to patients and nurses to patients that we have in the Cayman Islands. That is, we have nine doctors for every 1,000. 4 doctors for every 1,000 patients and 9 nurses for every 1,000 patients, one of the highest in the developed world. So we want to maintain that level here. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is by inspiring our Caymanian youngsters to take up medicine. So that is why one of the reasons that we are as passionate as we are about Healthcare Explorers. So I would love for parents to reach out to us, for students to reach out to us. Again, the contact information is healthcare.explorers@healthcity.ky. The office number for Healthcare Explorers is 640-4195, 640-4195. So you can call us, you can email us, and let's have those conversations about how, if you're the student, how you can fit in, or for the parents, what can best fit for your youngster. And to also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and look out for those virtual programs that we will be sharing more details about very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Charles. Final thoughts and reminders from you, Shamari.
Yeah, seeing as Charles took the last 5 minutes. But no. Just the reason we do what we do is obviously based on Charles speaking about the fact that we will need those ratios, but it goes deeper than that. As Caymanians, we obviously want to make sure that we take care of Caymanians and that we give as much opportunity, especially in this diverse field that can be so rich. And persons can get so much fulfillment from being in this field. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get more Caymanians involved. It's just like when you're in tourism. When I was in tourism, always wanted to make sure that we get as many Caymanians involved in tourism, and even within the Department of Tourism, if it's not front facing, as many opportunities as we could give so that people could be successful just in life. We used to do that regardless if it's in tourism or not. And that extends to what we're doing here to give people as much opportunity as possible, even if it isn't to be a doctor or nurse, if it's to be a technician, or even if it's to be within finance or marketing, as many people as we can help. And that's why we're strategically working with UCCI also moving forward to make sure that we help as many of our young staff to put them on a career path that they'll be successful in life.
Awesome. Thank you. And Nathan, it was also a pleasure to meet you and to hear your story. I know this was our first conversation, hopefully not our last. Mr. Charles, you owe me a visit in the very short-term future because I think we've long talked about this, so we need to touch base and get you on here. But it is about to turn the dial to 6 o'clock this evening, and that wraps up our Medical Monday brought to you by our partners at Health City Cayman Islands. If you or someone you know has given any thought of a profession in the medical field, or even for a young child who does not know yet what they want to do, I think, as we've talked about, it's incredibly important to expose them to things such as the medical field through these programs, because it helps them decide. Maybe they don't want to do it, but it helps them decide that as well. I thank you all for your time with me this afternoon, and that brings us to the end of today's show. I will be back again tomorrow right here, same time, same place, for some more Straight Talk on Star 92.7.